Before Europeans colonized what we now know as Michigan, the location of Highland Park was on a prominent ridge that overlooked what would later become Detroit. Development attempts in the area began as far back as the 1810s, though nothing took hold until the late 1800s when the settlement was incorporated as Highland Park. At some point, the ridge was flattened and the area blossomed as a rural farming community. It would start slowly, but Detroit's Industrial Revolution would eventually reach Highland Park thanks to Henry Ford in more ways than one. In addition to using the assembly line, which turned Detroit into an industrial powerhouse that attracted new residents from around the world, Ford built the Highland Park Ford plant in 1910, bolstering the area's growth. Ford built plants outside of Detroit to save on taxes, as the city of Detroit charged higher rates at the time. Detroit annexed dozens of smaller communities to become the city it is today, with the two notable holdouts being Hamtramck and Highland Park. Ford wasn't the only big player in town. The Chrysler Company was founded in Highland Park in 1925 and remained in the city until moving to Auburn Hills in 1996. These companies provided well-paying jobs and financed the city's development, bolstering Highland Park's population from 4,120 residents in 1910 to 46,499 in 1920. Though the city has many single-family and duplex homes, it once had several massive apartment buildings to house auto workers. The structure pictured here, the Glen-Villa Apartments, was built in 1926. Across from Highland Park High School and about a mile from Henry Ford's Highland Park plant, the Glen-Villa was at the middle of it all. The structure was 4 stories, constructed of brick, and had a basement. Initially, it would have 76 apartments, with a combination of 3-room and 2-room units. In July of 1926, the Guarantee Trust Company of Detroit valued the property at $378,000, or nearly $7 million in 2025. For a time, it seemed like Highland Park had it all. The population peaked at 52,959 in 1930, and jobs were somewhat steady for a short period after World War II. Between the factory's completion in 1910 and the Model T's discontinuation in the 1920s, Ford's Tin Lizzie, a nickname for the Model T, was the facility's bread and butter. After it was discontinued and car production moved to Dearborn, the Model T plant in Highland Park assembled forts and tractors and automotive trim. However, by the late 1950s, Ford began demolishing portions of the original Model T plant, and many of the automotive manufacturers were eyeing moves elsewhere. This is a quick reminder that I put up videos like this every Friday, so please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. With less industry in Highland Park, there was less tax revenue and fewer jobs, which meant higher unemployment and more residents fleeing the city. By the 1980s, Ford had left the Highland Park plant, and the city's population had fallen to 27,909. By the time Chrysler jumped ship in the 1990s, Highland Park was in crisis. According to the Detroit Free Press, Chrysler's departure from Highland Park resulted in the loss of more than half of the city's annual operating budget. It wasn't just the city government that was hurting. The Glen-Villa Apartments were still standing, but in dire need of repairs. Modernization was expensive, but landlords could only charge so much in rent. Lower rent payments led to less maintenance, and the property eventually showed signs of aging. In February of 1993, a 5-alarm fire ripped through the Glen-Villa, starting on the 4th floor and spreading through the back of the structure. Initially, it was reported that nobody had been injured in the blaze, but Roderick Halton, 36, was later discovered in the rubble. The Glen-Villa Apartments were rehabbed after the fire and converted into 70 studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units in an attempt to bring new tenants to the structure. By 2010, Highland Park's population had fallen to 11,776, the high school across the street was abandoned, and the Glen-Villa Apartments were on the brink. By 2014, the apartments were shuttered and boarded up. In January of 2016, a 3rd alarm fire broke out within the building, and Highland Park and Detroit firefighters fought the blaze for hours. Most of the nearby fire hydrants were broken or without pressure, so hoses had to be run from blocks away. A few days later, it was still smoldering. Due to the damage from the fire, the structure collapsed within itself in multiple places, and it has only gotten worse since. The facade hangs on by a thread and appears ready to fall over at any moment, although it has survived nearly a decade. In many ways, the city of Highland Park is a lot like the Glen-Villa Apartments. You can tell that something magnificent used to be here, but deindustrialization, capitalism, greed, and racism have turned it into a shell of its former glory. Still, there's hope. Not for the Glen-Villa Apartments, but the city of Highland Park has gained attention in recent years. Some new residents have moved into the city, despite its population falling below 10,000 for the first time since 1910 at the 2020 census. The community's LEAP initiative is fighting to decrease the city's dependence on fossil fuels. Solidarity has installed solar-powered streetlights after DTE removed lighting from the city, hoping to make the municipality energy independent. And the Joe Louis Greenway, which will connect Detroit, Highland Park, and Hamtramck, is blazing a path through the city as we speak. In many ways, Highland Park feels like Detroit did a decade ago. Here's to hoping that the progress will be swift, current residents will not be left behind, and the Glen-Villa Apartments won't be an eyesore much longer. Seriously, how long can this masonry hang on like this?
If you enjoyed this, please throw a like on the video, drop a comment down below about how much longer you think this one will be standing, and subscribe to the channel for a new video every Friday. If you want to support the channel, you can check the link in the description to get a t-shirt that I've designed or buy a print from my print store. Until next time, this building matters.